Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Boom, boom, boom. We are back with another episode of Find Your Freedom. And we have a fantastic guest friend on today. You're going to be amazed with our topic and her story today. But before we go into that, we just want to let you know that our episode is being brought to you by Wealth Builders Mortgage Group. So if you're looking for a loan on your private home or a STR, MTR, or any type of mortgage loan, this is where you want to go. Health Builders Mortgage Group. I use them. Omid used them. They're super fantastic. And the great thing about them is they will make sure that they find a way to get you a loan. So you want to contact with them. It takes you 10 minutes to give a call. It's absolutely free. So with that being said, I just want to get to our new guest. Well, she's not new. She's a friend. And I gotta brag on her for just a little bit. So sorry. All right. But Omid and I, we had a speaking gig down in Texas, Austin, and this is where she's from. And the minute that she found out that we were speaking there, she contacted us and said, "Y'all not staying anywhere else. I got y'all covered. And on top of that, you're going to hang out with me. I got all the cool people coming. We're going to do some boat activities. We're going to do, all these things." And that's just the type of a person that she is. Not that she's knowledgeable, but she's super smart. But let me just give a little bit about backstory on her and her resume. So she started her investing in 2018, and she started with flipping houses with her husband. While doing that, managing her career, which we're going to talk about that as well. She was raising two kids, and what happened is during the pandemic time, which everybody remember or want to remember or not want to remember, they started furnishing affordable properties for extended stays, and that's when she decided to open up her own company, the Corporate Rentals USA by Hestia. If that's correct, I got that right. Hestia. All right, Hestia. Sorry. Basically that's just merging being hospitable with your real estate. And she's taking that and now teaching other investors on how to create that cash flow, which is what everybody is looking for. So Vivian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I completely forgot that I hosted you at one of my properties.
I would never
I,
forget.
it was boats and hose, except she brought the boat, and I think we were the hose. So,
I think that seems about right. No.
You've discovered me. You've uncovered it. That is so funny.
It was
Well, thanks for
absolutely
having me here. That was quite an intro. Actually, the one thing that I failed to tell people is I actually started my first investment property in 2004.
Oh, really?
So in 2004, I was house hacking. I purchased a property in a suburb of Toronto, and this property had a basement apartment, which I rented out, had a separate entrance. And I started house hacking before house hacking was even a thing. My
Yep.
portion of payment on that property was like $250 a month. And this the great thing about the environment we live in today is that we have such a great community. In 2004, we didn't have Facebook. We barely had cell phones. We didn't
Yep.
have meetup.com. There weren't Eventbrite issue,
Nope.
nothing like that. So the real estate journey for me was really lonely at that time. And I kind of just kept it to myself. It was only in 2017, 2018 when I turned that switch back on and said, you know what? It doesn't feel so alone anymore because I have communities and podcasts like what you guys are offering.
Well, let me just share something real quick. It's funny because um our stories are parallel, and I didn't know that about you because same here. I was house hacking back in 2000, and the reason why we did it, it was four of us, and the reason why we did it was we was looking to pay low expenses like you. I think our expenses was like $300, per person. So I totally get it. So just a real first quick question. So you said this was back in Toronto. So tell us, where are you from?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm from many different places. I was born in Sacramento, California, for the sole purpose of having a U.S. passport. My parents were strategists. They were living in Hong Kong at the time in 1979. I'm dating myself here, but back then was the time of the Cold War, and my parents wanted to make sure that when Hong Kong was returned back to China in 97, that if they never got out of Hong Kong, they would have a way to escape. And their way of doing that was to give birth to me in the US, get me a US passport, and then my family went back to Hong Kong. But then they finally found a way to immigrate to Canada in 82, and I grew up in Canada. I only moved to the US in 2005.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
I'm from Toronto, I'm from Vancouver, I'm from Calgary, but then I also spent some of my teenage years living in Hong Kong, going to international school because my mom was a bank expatriate, like she was a banker at HSBC.
Nice.
So I've been in
Okay.
corporate housing pretty much my whole life because of my mom's job.
Oh, wow. That's pretty
Oh,
interesting.
that's so cool.
Um, what else do you want to know? There's so much to unpack. I don't know where to begin.
No, it's it's funny because I didn't even know that about you. I didn't even know that, you was all these different places. And when you think about it and you sit there and you say, wow, all right, you fast forward your story. Now you in corporate housing, right? Now you're actually providing corporate and you grew up in it, not even knowing, now did you kind of put those two together? Like, did you know that? Like when you started this corporate housing thing, did you know kind of like, oh, you know what? I was living this, so I can now provide it to other people.
This I'm going to sound so stupid by admitting this, but I never really put two and two together until a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, the reason why I know corporate housing and it feels familiar to me is because I lived in corporate housing for several years when I was in Hong Kong. So that then I was like, oh, that's why everything was so sterile and like clean and well kept. So yeah, it was just it all comes full circle.
So could I ask you a question? Because I think like the immigrant story is super powerful. So like coming from like the east to the west, and can you kind of talk about like the pressures as far as like being successful, or even like, do you feel like there was any sort of obligation, whether it's like to your parents for the sacrifices they made to come down here?
I think that's a super interesting question. I think my experience can be relatable to a lot of other first generation American Canadian kids. We have that huge expectation to be educated, to be well rounded, and to, I hate to say it, but to assimilate, right? To become very Americanized. But I think my parents were really, really open minded. They realized that they had their culture and the way they do things, but they were also really accepting to me being just the different person that I am. They didn't, of course, they tried to maneuver me into the direction of being a doctor or engineer or dentist, but at the end of the day, I think they actually, I don't think they were proud of me or knew that I would be successful until I got a job at Apple. Even
Oh,
getting my master's degree in supply chain was like not enough for them. But as soon as I got a job at Apple, suddenly I was like I was braggable to their friends. Like, oh, my daughter works at Apple or whatever. Right. So um, but to answer your question, I think the hardest or the scariest part is really getting the approval from their parents, right?
mm,
In our culture, a lot of us feel like no matter, even though I'm 45, turning 46 years old, I still sometimes feel like I need my parents' approval for
wow.
decisions that I make as an adult. And only until 2 years ago that I finally felt like I am free from that pressure because my parents have actually said they're really proud of what I've done with my life. My
Wow.
mom is I grew up in a very non-traditional household. My dad was sort of the homemaker. My mom was the breadwinner. She was
Mm.
the bank executive. We moved around our entire lives for her job. And then my dad just did whatever he could to kind of fill his time, take care of us and whatnot. And I guess there's being different was always a little bit acceptable for us. And I guess it's been a great transition to full-time real estate, and really great that my parents support me in how I manage my life today. My mom being an executive, she always knew what the pressures are to be in corporate, to be a bread winning woman, to be, you know, high in her corporate ladder, and how much pressure there is not only to be professional but also to be a parent. So she's like, I really look up to what you've done with your life, because you've learned how to relieve the pressure and build wealth and be able to do all the things now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
So how was the transition? Obviously, they were excited when you were with Good Apple. Sorry, not Google, Apple. Um, was that were you concerned about their approval when you left that to pursue real estate?
yeah, I think so. I think that leaving Apple was hard for me too, right? When you
Hmm.
work at these big companies, there's what they call golden handcuffs. At every quarter, every review, you're getting these bonus stocks that are worth a lot of money,
Hmm.
but you don't earn those right away. You earn them as you continue your work with them. So they might reward you $50,000 in stocks, but you only get those in 4-year increments or every 6 months or whatever it is. So you only earn them as you work.
Okay.
That was the hardest part for me. That was the hardest part for me, is like leaving that money on the table. And my parents, they knew what I was going through. Like, they knew that losing my hair as suddenly as I did was my body physically telling me that something is not right.
Hmm.
And I think they supported me. They supported me. They said, you've been investing in real estate already. You're not just switching on a dime. You had sort of a backup plan, and they had faith that I would figure it out.
That's
Wow.
good. Well, let's back that story up a little bit because obviously, losing hair is a big deal. And like, so how did that actually come about? Like, was it some issues with your health, or like what happened?
So I'm perfectly healthy, which I'm so grateful for. My blood counts are good. I'm All my panels are great. What
That's
happened for me was I've always had alopecia in some form or another since I was 12 years
okay.
old. Alopecia is an autoimmune disorder where your body just overprotects you with its immune system.
Hmm.
And in my case, growing up, even up until I was like 40 years old, I would have these, small little bald spots. But they would be controlled with steroid shots, and they would come back in 2 weeks, and then I'd be on my way. I never had a problem with managing my that small amount of hair loss.
Okay.
But by the summer of 2020, when the pandemic was like in full force, I was also not only stressed out from like not knowing if the world is going to end, right? Like, there was, if you think back to the time of
Right.
2020, we're like,
Oh
what
yeah.
is COVID? Everyone feels like they're dying around us. The
Mm.
hospitals are full. Meanwhile, I'm at home with my kids. They had nowhere to go. It was summertime. They couldn't go to camp. They're just on their iPads, wasting their days away because I had no time to take care of them. My husband was trying to keep the business rolling so we can keep money coming in, and I was working at Apple trying to launch an iPhone during the pandemic when there's supply chain issues. So, like, not only was my personal life in such like havoc, but also my job was really, really stressful, trying to get
Mm.
products in and out of customs, trying to land planes when flights were getting canceled, pilots not showing up, air staff not showing up, trucks not showing up, closing down warehouses when we're supposed to be picking orders, right? There's
Wow.
all these things that were happening and out of my control. And when that happened, I think I consumed all that stress in my body, and my heart palpitations were so high. My
Mm.
hair would tickle and it would fall out. By the end of every meeting, every Zoom call, I would look down and there'd be just a pile of hair on the floor. And
Really?
I lost my hair in 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. But I kept falling out and falling. Have you guys ever felt my head? It's like completely bald. Like, there's no hair follicles. It's shiny. It's naturally shiny. And It
You
just
didn't,
fell
you didn't
out.
invite us to like rub your head, but next time we see you, we will for sure.
It's for good luck. You can totally
Yeah.
invite
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
You have a beautiful head. I just want you to know. It's
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's how I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, is this the time to pursue real estate full time? Is this my signal? Because while I was working at Apple, we had started diving into like flipping houses on our time, like during the weekends and after work, and just getting our feet wet into what does financial freedom look like, right? You don't just quit your job and start flipping houses. You should flip houses or get into real estate while you're doing your full-time job so that you're balancing out that risk. And for me, that signal was really clear. All I had to do was look in the mirror and say, "Holy shit, like who's this person looking back at me?"
Wow.
Maybe it's saying that I don't belong in corporate anymore and maybe now it's time for me to pursue my dream life, which is freedom. Freedom from the shackles of the corporate world and hustling a lot harder because now I'm trying to, pay myself.
Yeah.
good. So
Okay.
when you started house flipping, did you what was it that drove you guys to start that? Had you seen a friend or somebody you knew do it? What started that interest?
That's such a good story. There, I was on a business trip to China and I'm
Oh,
sitting at Chicago airport just minding my own business. This guy sees my phone charger next to me and he sits down. He's like, "Hey, can I use your charger?" So I'm like, "Yeah, that's no problem." So he sat down, he charged his phone. And of course, I'm very outgoing. And this guy's now tethered to me literally with his phone in my charger. And I started asking him, like, "Oh, where are you off to? What are you doing? Like, what vacation are you off to?" And he told me that he was going to Aruba to go meet his wife and kids. And I was like, "Oh, I've never been to Aruba before. How long are you going for?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go for a month." I was like, "Whoa, a month? That's like amazing." Because as a W-2 employee, you're typically 2, 3, 4 weeks if you're lucky. But he's like, "Well, I'm kind of over it because the sun and the beach are kind of boring for me. I was just in Bermuda for a month before." Like, so he's humble bragging all of this, right?
oh,
And I looked at him. I'm like, "Okay, something's not right here. What do you do for a living?" And he said that him and his wife, and he's around my age, him and his wife in their early 20s bought a motel and they owner operated it, and then they were able to grow it and they bought more and they bought more, and now they have this lifestyle where they own hotels and they can vacation and still make money because while they're vacationing, people are also vacationing and paying them. So I was like, okay, so this is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about in his book, right? This is what not trading time for money is. Meanwhile, here I am trading time for money working for corporate. And I was like, well, I want this life. So when I got back from that trip, I talked to my husband. I was like, how do we put our existing skill sets into play? I'm really good at analytics. I'm really good at research. My husband is really good with his hands. He's, taken construction courses in high school. He's really handy around the home.
Mhm.
How hard can flipping houses be? And I was like, let's just try it.
let's just do it. That's
Let's
awesome.
just do it.
Now, one of the reasons I ask you that is because sometimes I feel like people get paralyzed in these real estate spaces, whether it's short-term rental, midterm rental, house flipping, and there's so much information out there right now. But sometimes, like when I started doing short-term rentals, there weren't these groups and help and all that as well. And so, I think the groups are fantastic now, but sometimes I feel, and tell me if you agree, sometimes I feel like people get caught up in needing to do it perfectly or finding all the info from all these groups. And I feel like they don't trust their gut enough and just jump in and
Mhm.
do it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think people don't trust their gut enough if they're scatterbrained.
Mm.
interesting.
My approach, because like I started just like everyone else. I'm in Austin, Texas. At that time, I'd only lived here for 2 or 3 years. I didn't know a lot about the market, but I know one thing is true about real estate. And the golden rule is what?
It always appreciate.
Location, location,
Oh,
location,
got
location,
it.
right?
I don't agree with that one.
Well, That's my philosophy. For me, do you agree with location? Do you guys? How about the other
Location.
people?
Yeah,
Let,
I
let, let me
agree with
tell you. Hold
location.
on. Okay, let me tell y'all what I think. I think location is two. You know what I think is one? People.
Oh,
Because the reason I say that is because if you find the right people can tell you the right location. So I put people ahead of just looking. I structured everything is by finding the right people. Every piece of real estate I have is because I found the right people, and the right people told me the right locations to invest in.
That's definitely a fast track way to do it,
Yeah.
right?
So that's a
Um,
fair argument
yeah,
to
but if
have.
you don't say you don't know people, right?
But
If you
so
don't know
Lenny,
people,
yeah,
then what?
I feel like Lenny, you're a people person, right? So you leverage
Yeah,
people.
true. Yes,
But
100%.
What about the introverts? How do they find location?
yeah, the
Well, there you
introverts,
go.
I feel like they're the technicians. So they're the ones that figure it, right?
I think people get too scatterbrained in the research process. For me, I literally took it step by step. I said, I live in Austin. If I were to put the location rule into play, what does that actually mean? So I went on Google and I said, what are the top 5 elementary schools in Austin? Okay, these are the top 5. Okay, now I'm going to hone into what zip codes they are. I'm going to see how much the home values are. Can I invest in those areas? If not, can I go to the next top 5 schools? And then you start studying those specific zip codes, get to know them. How much does a single story cost? How much does a two-story cost? If it's not renovated, how much can you buy it for versus fully renovated, right? So you try to target a specific area as opposed to try to be a specialist for everything. If you just study, like for my approach, I studied probably 6 zip codes in a matter of 4 to 5 months.
Mhm.
That way I got really familiar with it. That way, when I saw someone say, hey, I have a deal in this zip code, I could be like, oh, yeah, I already know that's a deal, or I don't know if I don't think it's a deal. Because you're not trying to look in Houston and also looking in Dallas, and then there's too many variations. If you just kind of compress that and become a specialist, it's like being a doctor. Why would you try and study the entire human body when you can study the wrist?
Right. Right.
So
100%.
it's all about trying to hone in on one specific area and then getting started from there. And that's how I started, and I recommend people do that as well.
No, that's a great point because same here. So I'm big on focusing on one zip code at a time because there's so many things that can happen, so many numbers that can change, so many amenities that you're going to have to put in two totally different zip codes, and it can get confusing, it can get
Right.
overwhelming, and when you're confused and you overwhelmed, when you add those two up, that equals what? Zero,
That
right? That
equals
equal,
0.
nothing. You're not going to move forward. So, you telling everybody one zip code at a time, folks,
Mhm.
is the way to go. So this episode obviously is called, what real estate can do for you. And it sounds like, listen to your story, which I'm learning a lot today myself, is real estate has done a lot for you. Dealing with just a lot of the stress, dealing with the handcuffs at the corporate job, dealing with even you growing up, as a kid. So I guess tell us, like, what did real estate do for you?
Real estate. So when I started in real estate again in let's say 2018 is when we finished our first flip. Our net worth was probably around between our single family home that we lived in plus our one rental property was probably around 750,000. And then when I really started truly putting in the law of attraction to believe that real estate was going to be the path for me to find financial freedom and wealth, I started putting all the effort towards it, and we were able to 6 or 7x our net worth because we focused on finding deals, learning the market, knowing what off market deals, how to find off market deals, how to renovate them, how to refinance them. So really it's amplified our net worth because we were able to use real estate as a tool, as a vehicle to build freedom. And although I always had this dream of quitting my job at Apple one day, because you don't just you have this, you have to have visions, right? Like I wanted this. I was thinking 5 years I could quit my job, but um, I actually did it in like a less than 2 years.
Wow.
And I didn't want to quit my job at Apple per se, because who doesn't love a good paying paycheck, right? But when your body decides it's going to shut down on you, and your hair is falling out, and your heart palpitations are so strong, and you can't sleep at night because you're so stressed, and you just don't want to wake up in the morning because all you want to do is cry. I am so grateful that we started real estate investing, because it gave me options
Mm.
to quit. For many people that are just doing a W-2 job and they don't have any other resources or other sources of income, that could have been me. That could have been me, and I could have still be there, and I would have been miserable. I would have been I don't even know how to describe it. The feeling was so bad for me. I'm so grateful that I was able to find how to cash flow in a non-cash flowing market, how to take my corporate housing experience as a kid and bring it into the Airbnb space, how to help families that are going through insurance displacement find quality, reliable housing, and then also being rewarded for the work that I do in the space. So, what did real estate do for me? It gave me options.
Nice.
And I'm glad you said options. I've been asked before, what does freedom mean to you? And my answer has always been having options. That's freedom, is not having to go a certain direction. Now, so you did flips, but then how did you what was your process to get into the midterm rentals? What was that mindset? How did that come about?
Oh, so when you're flipping houses and you have a W-2 job, you're just going to get taxed for those houses that you're flipping,
Okay.
right? And I think, people will see like, oh, I made $20,000 on a flip. Well, yeah, but now you're going to get taxed on that
Yeah.
plus your W-2 income.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And while it was a great way for us to amplify what the incoming funds were, I read a book called Tax Free Wealth, which is by Robert Kiyosaki's CPA. And who doesn't pay taxes is Robert Kiyosaki, right? So I read the book. It is eye opening. If you have, it's January 2025. If you're looking to do better on your taxes, read this book, because it will open your mind up to what real estate can actually do for you. And that's when I said, you know what? We need to start keeping our real estate. At that time, we had our primary home and we had one rental property. And by the sixth flip, we had already flipped a number of properties. We were starting to accumulate this extra money. I didn't want to get taxed on it. So I'm like, okay, we have to start learning how to depreciate and how the rich use these assets to depreciate and pay less taxes.
Yep.
So then I was like, well, I want to get back into the hospitality space because I loved working at a hotel when I was a teenager. So how about I open up an Airbnb? And this is in 2019 when Airbnb was still warming up and getting much more popular.
Hmm.
So that's when I opened up my Airbnb, and I loved it because, I love welcoming. You guys have seen my hospitality, right? Like I love
Yes.
taking
Yes.
care of people, right?
Yep.
And then the pandemic hit in full fledged, right? So July of 2019 was when I hosted my first guest. And then I want to say by March of 2020, like 6, 7 months later, Airbnb is now intervening in people's businesses saying, oh yeah, you can cancel or whatever it was. And I was then terrified. Like, how do I diversify my guest pool so that I don't have to rely on this OTA, this platform to bring me guests? I mean, obviously I'm still on Airbnb today, but I also have direct bookings, right? So I learned to diversify my business to work with guests that are remodeling their home, or their or construction teams that were coming in to work on projects. And that's when I was like, holy shit, I think I found the secret to cash flow, because I'm doubling long-term rents. I'm still in the hospitality business.
Yep.
They don't bug me. And this is like the perfect strategy for me, because I needed to find time to heal myself. I was under so much stress. My cortisol levels were out of control. And midterm rentals gave me time freedom to let me check in, guess, and almost set it and forget it. I can still make money as revenue. And after a year, I was like, you know what? This is great. I'm going to sell that property and buy more properties that I can turn into midterm rentals. And that's what I did. So now I have 7 midterm rentals, 7 doors that are midterm rentals. I've basically zeroed my expenses. I don't have a mortgage pretty much. I have a studio at my property that I still house hack, right? I have a studio that's
I
connected to
love
my
it.
property that pays most of my mortgage, all of my mortgage. I mean, we just have to pay the taxes. And then we
Mhm.
have our other properties that bring me more than 6 figures every year.
Awesome.
It doesn't necessarily replace my income at Apple, but man, I have so much more freedom.
But are you happier?
Happier. Happier. And I'm also a realtor, so I have, money from I have various streams of income, including teaching people how to automate their midterm rental business, which I'm just launching. So ask me
Oh,
anything.
that's
Nice.
awesome.
Listen to that, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. All right, Omid, what's up, man? What you got? Look like you got something cooking over there, man. I can see it.
No,
Go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
I got to make sure my internet is good. But yeah, no, I think this is super amazing. I think it's there's a lot of people in the space that are in your position. They when you first started, they have chaotic lives. They kind of maybe want to slow it down. They're interested in real estate. You've kind of, I think, experienced different parts of real estate. So, what advice would you give somebody who's maybe wanting to get started or start the path into kind of the direction of at some point walking away from their W 2?
Start reading. Right? I
Mm.
think a really good place to get started is Bigger Pockets. Like if you're completely new to real estate and you're like, do I do commercial? Do I do multi-units? Do I do multifamily? Do I do single family home, small multifamily? There's so
Wait,
many
wait,
different
wait, wait,
ways.
wait, wait, wait. The first start is find your freedom, and then bigger pockets.
Well, that too, right? Obviously.
All right, now you can carry on.
Right. But I'm just what I mean is like there's so many different ways that you can invest in real estate, but find one or two that you feel that magnetism towards that strategy and stick to learning it until you get to 80% confidence and then just fucking do it.
Mm, there you go. I love that.
Because people get so strung up on taking courses and reading this and listening to there's so many different ways that you can scramble too much information in your head, but find the one that you can relate to the most and stick with it and become an expert in that space. You're not going to have all the answers when you start.
No.
But if you surround yourself with the right people, like real estate people are so friendly. They will help you. But you have to show that you're putting in the work to at least get to 80%.
Mm,
And then the rest of it, you can get, like for me, like people contact me all the time. I'm stuck. Okay, well, that's fine that you're stuck, but tell me, like, this is my approach to problem solving and working with people. And sometimes it turns people off, but that's just the way that I am. But okay,
mhm,
you have a problem. Tell me what 3 ways have you thought about solutionizing your problem? And then let's talk about the best path forward.
mm,
Don't come to me and say, I have a problem. I have no idea what to do.
right.
For
Mm-mm.
me, that's the most frustrating thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, you guys are in this space. I'm sure people are like, can I pick your brain? Yes, you can, but tell me how you've tried to tackle the problem first.
No,
100%.
you have to. You
Yeah.
you you have to. I mean, because that's the only way you're going to get the mind to think of when there's a problem. I'm going to try my best to find a solution. And that's a mindset to have, and it's influencers like you that are building individuals. It's that saying when you teach someone how to fish. I don't know how the saying goes, but if you give them a fish, they won't eat. But if you teach them how to fish, they can eat
Keep for
forever.
life.
And that's what you're doing. But truth be told is teaching someone how to fish comes with doing something. And the problem with our society, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but is that a lot of people don't want to do anything. A lot of people want it to be dropped into their lap, right? Rather than doing something. Hey, look, my wife called me and she said, "Oh my God, something's wrong with our dryer." And I'm like, okay. And it's funny because we just 2 days before purchased a dryer for one of our tenants, right? And I'm like, okay, but she said, hey, I Googled it. I Googled the error that came up, and this is what it said, and it's not working. So she did something.
Yeah.
She took the liberty to go to YouTube and look something up, and she couldn't find a solution. I came home, I knew what the issue was, so I was able to resolve it. But that's what you want. You want someone that's going to sit there and try their best to find. Because look, when someone come to me and say, "Hey man, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this, I tried that," I'm like, okay, I can see where the frustration is because you went to every door and it closed on you. I get it. So let me come in, and I'm willing to roll my sleeves up at that time. So I'm excited to hear that, Viv. Just to let you know, So it kind of got my little hair.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see it, but
Stop rubbing
anybody
it
that's
in with
looking,
the hair. Stop,
no,
stop
here
rubbing
you
it in with the hair.
go.
Man,
You might feel the hair, but I don't. But listen, simply put, and I think we all agree, if you're not willing to put in the effort, don't do real estate. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
for you,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah.
People don't get rich off of real estate because they did nothing.
Right.
Because they build wealth through real estate because they're constantly learning, finding multiple exit strategies, not being cornered into one only. That's where a lot of people are struggling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates are at 7%. Maybe they bought the wrong deal, right? If you can't learn multiple exit strategies on one deal, like,
Mm-hmm.
don't bother.
But
Yeah.
let me jump in there real quick. Let me. So you're right now. You have a program where you're helping people, correct?
Hmm.
And I'm going to. We would like for you to talk about that a little bit. And I think it's very necessary. And obviously, I have a kids real estate financial literacy academy, and I'm in these schools and these youth groups, and I'm talking to 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, ninth graders, and when I'm showing them these things, they eyes open up and say, "Wow, I never knew." Like the thing I get from these youth is I never knew it was this simple. So outside looking in, they couldn't see it to break it down to simplicity. And as a coach, like you, Viv, you would sit here and have to do that. Like, so can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing when it comes to educating individuals, and kind of what feedback you get from people, and them aha moments that you experienced.
I think the biggest takeaway is that you have to approach this as you don't know what you don't know. Okay. And I was there too. But you might know this, but my background is in supply chain and operations. And it's actually the perfect career for me because I've always been the kind of person that wants to do something faster and better without impacting the result. Okay. So in my teaching, I teach people automation, implementation, systems, and processes. So, quick example is I'm in the midterm rental space. Okay, midterm rental is a strategy. It is not a legal term. What that means is by the books in the court of law, there's a short-term rental definition and there is a long-term rental definition. Once you get into that long-term rental definition, that's tenancy,
Hmm.
correct?
Correct.
Short-term rental, you might have an easier time evicting someone. In the long-term rental space, it's a lot harder.
Hmm.
But if you're not doing the right thing. So what I teach is how do you attract bookings on Airbnb, your direct bookings, and automate that signature rental agreement process, ID checking process, all in a matter of minutes.
Mm.
Because if you look at the traditional midterm rental operator, they are going back and forth on Airbnb because they don't have instant book on, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have instant book on. So they're going back and forth. Who are you traveling with? Do you have any kids? Blah, blah, blah. I need you to sign a rental agreement. And well, why do you make it so hard? There are systems that you can use. So when someone instant books with me, because I've got instant book on, I automatically send them a link. They sign my rental agreement. They upload their ID, they do a selfie,
Mhm.
and then I get a credit card deposit. It's done in like 2 minutes. Why does it have to be so hard? At the end of the day, if you have their photo, you have their credit card matches their ID matches the name on the rental agreement. Do you care why they're traveling to your and staying with you?
No.
So I teach this because if you think about what's happened in the LA wildfires,
Mm-hmm.
tens of thousands of people have lost their home.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a I don't even know how we're going to get out of this. But if you put yourself in the shoes of that guest, they know that there's only so many properties out there that they can rent today. Can you imagine someone having to go back and forth with a host trying to figure out if they can stay in that place, or they can just instant book
Yeah.
and get it done?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's why time compression of processes is so important in this space, especially in midterm rentals. In midterm rentals, my booking lead time is 3.9 days, which
Wow.
means that no one is planning on extended stays. Why? Because extended stay guests, they're relocating from somewhere because of a job offer, or they've been displaced from their home because they've had a fire or water damage and they can't live there anymore, or their house is under construction. So midterm rental guests, their needs are very, very last minute. And oftentimes, if it's in like a panic situation, they're going to book with a place that's the easiest to book.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I teach. It's my new program, and I just launched it.
What is it called?
It's at vivianyip.com. It's called the MTR Systems Accelerator.
I almost feel you say all that. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if she could help me apply that to other areas in my life and my business. Like maybe you could be a time compression specialist.
I love saving time because the more time I save, the more I can go wake surfing.
There you go.
Love it. Love it.
At least in the summertime.
Now, are you still in Austin?
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy your wake surfing videos because usually I see you with like a beer bong, and you take it and you're surf. Oh, oops! Oh, yeah, just kidding. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Cut that part out. Yeah.
I have this really, really professional persona about me.
Yeah,
No
there you
one
go.
knows about my most useless skill.
Love
I'm
it.
kidding. I don't care.
No, for sure. So, Vivian, we're definitely gonna have to have you on again. I know there's a lot of topics that we want to hit, and we didn't get a chance to kind of talk about it. So, are you going to be available to kind of have another discussion?
I'm at your service.
Okay, we appreciate you. So, tell us. I know you've shared this before, but what does Find Your Freedom mean to you?
Find your freedom means knowing what your priorities are and what you want in life, and putting all the effort to attract that into your life. So for me, I would say when I was working in corporate, finding my freedom meant that I would never have to ask for another day off. If there's like a culture in some places where, like I heard in California that, or not California, in Colorado, that they have snow days in some corporate cultures that you could just go and take off on a snow day if they're getting a lot of POW, right? For me, it's the same thing. Like if I want to build a culture in my family, in my life, that if something comes up and I feel like not working because I've automated my systems and I have financial freedom and I can go and go do my own thing for whatever I want that day, that's finding your freedom, is not feeling guilty for how you spend your time.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
that's very powerful. I feel guilty for not working all the time. Like if I have any down moment, I'm like, I'm just a lazy piece of, I don't know. Like,
I get that too. Like I work really, really, really hard, but but there are times where like the weather is so nice.
so
The
true.
first day of the wakeboarding season or wake surfing season, I'll look at my husband and be like, should we just play hooky today and just go out to the lake by ourselves and go surf? He's like, yeah, let's just do that. Right.
Yeah.
So I love having that freedom to do that. And I don't have to ask anyone for permission. It's having options.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess the next thing is obviously a lot of people going to want those options. And with that being said, how can people get in contact with you so you can help them get those options?
They can find me at vivianyip.com. I actually have a free learning community there. So vivianyip.com, there's a free community. You can find me on Instagram at vivianyip_official. And I also have a Facebook group. It's called Midterm Rental Wealth with Vivian Yip. And yeah, I'm all over social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on TikTok if it's still going to be around. Yeah, there's so many different ways to reach out to me. But if you reach out, again, don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with a problem, an obstacle, and the ways you've thought about it, and we can go from there.
Awesome,
I love
awesome,
that.
awesome. Awesome. So we're going to end our show here. And one of the things we like to do is do our big boom session. So, giving some audience time to turn their speakers down. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to count to three, 1, 2, 3. And then all three of us in a uniform manner is going to say boom as loud as we can. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Get some thumbs up. Get some thumbs up here. All right. Perfect. All right. So everybody's ready here. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Awesome, 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 awesome. Check this out. We just had a fantastic episode. And one of the things we learned, which I really want you to key in, is about options. That's what life's about. Life is really about having a choice of what you want to do with it. If you want to just stay in and cuddle under the covers and drink hot tea and coffee and hot chocolate for the day, you can. Or you want to get out there and show your inner badass with taking down deals and midterm rental space, short-term rental space, long-term rental space, you can. Life is just all about that. And first stop is getting with Vivian, because believe me, she's not just a badass when it comes to the real estate, but she's a badass, cool person, a badass, cool mom, a badass, cool husband. And she's just ultimately the individual that you really want to know and get along with. So from me to you, I'm telling you, make sure you join her group. You will get so much value from it. And for us to bring more episodes like Vivian, we need you to sit here and give us a honest 5-star review. So go on, make sure that you share this episode with your brother, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. Share it with all your coworkers, the ones that you like and the ones that you don't like. Until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, we talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.